So this International Day of Yoga has been a significant event. Ever since our Honorable Prime Minister and the Indian nation championed it at the United Nations, and it was ratified by more than 177 countries. And this day was adopted as the International Day of Yoga. When we look at the medical industry, the patient care pathway, the healthcare process involves not just the tertiary medicine, but also the primary and the preventive healthcare. So tertiary healthcare is where we have the hospitals and everything coming in, and that costs money for the government as well as the people. So that's where, as preventive medicine, yoga has really played a very important role and is playing a very important role all over the world. As an acknowledgement of it, June 21st, almost all countries got together and ratified this proposal by India to celebrate this day as an International Day of Yoga. Such celebrations and such acknowledgements become very important because with the flow of time, otherwise the root, the source of yoga, where it comes from and so on, will get lost. And hence this is a very important move by the government of India where the whole world comes together, benefits from it, acknowledging India's role and acknowledging the source of yoga being India. So that is the significance of this day. Otherwise, yoga as a system has been available for a very, very long period of time. For thousands of years. If you look at it, Maharishi Patanjali, the author of the Yoga Sutra, which is considered a canonical text of yoga, is dated anywhere between 5th century BC to 5th century AD. So that is at least about 1500 to 2000 years before present. So that makes it millennia old. And there are also texts, for example, we are in Parani in Tamil Nadu, and there are Tamil texts, very ancient Tamil texts, which talk of yogic practices. For example, Parani is very famous for Lord Muruga's temple. And Lord Muruga is considered the Lord of Siddhas and yogis. So Lord Muruga is Lord Shiva's son, and he is considered the guru of Siddhas. And in Parani, his idol, his Pratishta, the temple has been done by a great Siddha called Siddha Bhoganatha. Siddhar Bhogar did the Pratishta of Lord Muruga in Parani, Lord Dandayudapani, which is another name for Lord Muruga. And he has written many works. One of the most significant contributions of Siddhar Bhoganatha is called Saptakandam. So Saptakandam clearly enunciates various yogic practices, principles of pranayama and various things. Likewise, Siddha Agastya. Agastya is also a very ancient Siddha, a rishi who finds mention in Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas. His texts also mention yoga, yogic processes. Likewise, there is Tirumandiram, which is a text of Siddha Tirumular, which also mentions yogic processes. So we find that yoga has been adopted as a system for a very, very long period of time, both in South India, North India, and elsewhere. And it's been preserved as a lineage, as a parampara in India. So there has been a continual lineage, which are yoga paramparas.
So in today's session, we were discussing that since most of the education has now moved online, especially because of the coronavirus situation, we see that teachers. One thing is struggling with technology. Just as we had a link somewhere, but right now we are sort of having the YouTube live on another link. So this technology, each one goes through a bit of a struggle until they get a hang of it. But at the same time, teachers always wonder how to keep their students engaged in the process, how to engage the students effectively. One thing is that before the coronavirus situation, we used to tell our children, don't go online, don't use your mobile phone much, don't use your laptops much, be regulated and all that. But right now, we ourselves have to tell them that take your mobile phone and start attending online classes, take your laptop and start attending online classes. You have to use the internet. So it means that for the educational process, we have to use certain technologies. But at the same time, these technologies or whatever it is, or the medium of the instructions, the communication that is happening, could also be distracting. And since we do not have the physical presence of the teacher, we often wonder how to keep them engaged, how to make them attentive online, because they could just be browsing something else while the class is going on, or they could just switch off their cameras and not be paying attention, or they could be looking at the monitors for a long time such that they become very tired and then they start falling asleep. So that could also happen. So we were thinking that we need to have we've been having sessions for educators on using Google Classroom, on using online tools, but I felt that this series will be holistic only when we also look at how to enhance the teaching learning process through a more wholesome experience or practice. We found yoga to be one of those wonderful tools. Today being International Day of Yoga, we felt that we'll share some insights that we have been using, and then that can become useful to the teachers as well. So if you look at the educational process, whenever it is happening online, students actually face challenges on three dimensions, as we always talk about. One thing is the physical dimension, because the one you keep the laptop or computer, and some students could actually be very close to the monitor, peering into the monitor, or some people could be just sitting in a very bad posture, not which is suitable for learning. So that is one thing that could happen, one dimension that we can look at in the online education process. The second dimension is actually the emotional dimension, where students could actually be feeling something is going on in their mind, and they're just looking here and there. They are distracted because of things that are going on in their environment, and hence they're also not feeling emotionally connected to what you're talking to them. So that is one possibility. The third thing is the dimension is about cognition. Why cognition? Because they have to pay attention to what you're saying. They should not be distracted, and they should also have the ability to capture whatever you're teaching through online medium, because you're far away, they're sitting somewhere, and they're just looking at you through the computer. You're not there flesh and blood. So it means that there is a certain distance that is created through the online process. So it means that that has to be bridged in some way.
And that's where, when we look at these three dimensions, the challenges might be new, because the educators already know various challenges that happen in the physical space. But while being in the online space, what kind of challenges might pop up? Because one has to figure out the technology as well, and hence looking at the pedagogical aspects and the regular, teacher learner relationship, connect aspect. Those might not be well understood, and hence facing them, being prepared to face them, might not be very straightforward. So that's why we felt this would be a very good opportunity to address these dimensions.
So
So,
in the yeah, please.
so when we, as we have seen, some of the challenges in the physical space, uh, the emotional space, and the cognitive space. In the cognitive space, what we call as cognition, we will be looking at one is attention, another is memory, and the third aspect is decision making. Okay, these are cognitive executive functions that are available, which are understood. But what would be the kind of, in this context, in the online context, where the control of the teacher might not be very straightforward? Uh, Earlier, especially in India, uh, if you look at non-urban spaces, they have been more technology, we can say, averse or shy of using technology. So that's why mobile phone or iPad or all these most people would not use or allow their children to use, or teachers would not allow their students to use. So that's why in this context, how do we address these, and how do we gain deeper understanding of these processes? So in the physical space, we clearly see one of the things is students might get distracted because they are tired. Their eyes might actually be very, very tired, and hence physical because of physical parameters there could be distraction, and hence the teacher might not be able to connect with the student better. This is one key aspect that needs to be looked into. I remember clearly earlier, my teachers would be able to point out when I was growing up in schools. They would be able to point out based on how the student is observing the board.
Yeah.
They would be able to point out that, okay, you need to go to a optometrist, or you need to get corrective glasses. So here again, the student could be peering into the computer or the device, and that could cause severe eye strain. Another strain that could be caused is postural deficit. So yeah, the posture that the student adopts could actually strain their body, because if it's adopted over a long period of time, just like multiple periods during the same day. And another would be in terms of breathing could be impaired, breathing and digestion process. So that is one critical aspect. So that's where having practices that are stretching, relaxing, and awareness-based practices are very helpful. We will be looking at them at the after a few minutes. When coming to the emotional aspects, stress is a very important factor. Students could be stressed out for a lot of reasons.
Especially if you're handling 10th standard and 12th standard students. Younger students, since they don't have a specific outcome as of now, they may not be going through it
Yeah.
that much. But 12th standard students, for example, already many things are uncertain now. They're also distanced from their schools, the learning environment. So it means that this online medium causes an additional
Yeah,
stress.
an additional load.
So it means that that stress. What happens is we often tell the students the mechanism of stress. So it is also helpful if teachers could highlight this to the students, trying to explain to them what is going on with them. So what happens is in the body there is something called the fight or flight response. So whenever we see a dangerous thing, say for example a lion or an elephant that is coming towards us, there is an immediate reaction in the body in terms of neurotransmitters, hormones getting secreted, the glucose levels getting enhanced, so that we can quickly jump and run away or tackle the lion or elephant.
Yeah, and now in modern context, this could be lion and tiger or elephant could be replaced with cockroaches and lizards.
Yeah, lizards, or sometimes even teachers.
I don't want to say that.
Yeah. So what happens is the moment they
So
see
fight or flight,
Yes.
it's like that.
Yeah. So what happens is So the body starts secreting all these neurotransmitters, these hormones, and then all these systems start kicking in, such that there is a stress buildup in the body, right? And then what happens is the blood cortisol levels increases. So people have found that whenever people are stressed out, there is a lot of cortisol that is there in the body, because this is not to do with any physical thing. Nobody is coming there, no elephant is coming there, or no lion is coming there, or no cockroach is there. But since students are constantly imagining something very negative about the future or past or their family or something like that, that stress response is actually created. This happens even for the teachers, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the student, it also happens for the teachers.
This is
So
like an anxiety attack.
anxiety attack,
You
yeah,
need to perform on the
yeah,
online platform, and that causes an anxiety
anxiety
attack.
attack. For example, you're trying to figure out some technology, your class is going on, and then something goes away, then you're trying to quickly fix something. So what happens is a slight stress is created there, but if this happens over a period of time, the stress built up actually impairs a lot of functionalities in the body, because of the constant stress response your body is giving. So that students also go through.
And if we look at it, it's a very simple process. Now, when what we call as response, so you need to respond to stress. In order to be able to respond to stress, for example, the blood needs to be available in the arms and legs, because it's a fight or flight response, right? So blood glucose becomes shifted to the arms and legs. So it's taken away from the digestion process. It's taken away from the brain, for example. So, and redistributed to the arms and legs, to the extremities of the body. And for that, the heart needs to pump so much more. And in order to transport carbon dioxide away and then oxygen in, the breathing rate needs to be increased. Like this, a whole slew of processes need to be kicked in. So towards that, there is cellular communication that happens through the hormones and the neurotransmitters. So hormones are communication from one cell to another through the endocrinal system. So the endocrine glands secrete certain hormones. So cortisol is one such hormone secreted, and so what you call as adrenal system, adrenaline. You would have seen adrenaline rush. Basically, that's a hormone secretion which helps in kicking these processes in. Likewise, neurotransmitters are faster signaling achieved through the nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, which increases all of these parameters. Parasympathetic nervous system is associated with bringing these parameters back to normalcy. So in a physical condition, it's fight or flight, and after the threat is removed from the environment, your parasympathetic nervous system brings the associated parameters back to a normal range, normal functioning range. But in an online system, those parameters might always be high.
Correct.
And that leads to a chronic or a long drawn problem.
Exactly.
Where your BP, your cortisol levels always remain high. After the stress is done, there is no perception of stress being done. It's always on.
So this can be very true for especially students who are working towards some kind of a goal. Say, for example, they're preparing for JEE, and then now everything is online. So they're not sure, how to handle that, because there are so many things that are happening at home. In a school, it's very different. 9 to 5, they have a learning environment, but right now they're sitting at home, which may not be exactly a learning environment. They have to sit in a room,
Yeah.
close the doors, and study. So it's a very complex thing. So we need to understand the perspective of the students as well.
And also, society helps in dissipating this
Exactly.
stress.
Yeah.
So after the stress response, you have people around you who nurture you, who care for you, and hence the stress subsides.
And yeah.
But now one is situated within closed doors without the ability to interact with anybody live.
Yeah.
Live is always online now. So that might not give sufficient circumstance for the stress, to come down.
And then if they go and express it to their parents, they may not get the same response as they would get it from their friends.
Yeah.
So that is also something.
And there is also a learning curve associated with it.
Yes.
So one will need to learn how to respond to the online environment.
Exactly.
There is a learning curve associated with it.
Exactly. So we have looked at how the online context changes the way people changes the way the body functions, because people are sitting in front of the monitor. We've also seen how it impacts the emotions, and we are now going to see how it impacts the cognitive process. Because when there is a live teacher, the student is sitting there in the classroom looking at the teacher, who is transmitting that knowledge in a lively manner, because you're moving here and there. You're grabbing the attention of of the student in some way possible. You're using those tone modulations, you're writing something on the board or showing something on the presentation. So it means that there is a process of live engagement happening. Whereas when you look at the monitor, it's still live nevertheless, but what happens is there are just also possibilities of so many distractions. People could just open a browser and keep browsing something else, right? Or some chat message is going on there. I've heard, I've been helping teachers set up Zoom and Google Classroom. They've been asking me about different settings, how to disable scribbling by students, how to disable chat messages by students. So all these things happen,
And even how to make the students exit after the class is over.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
The teacher would exit, but the students would go on.
Yeah.
And that's quite unacceptable.
Correct. So these are some, it sounds fun, but I'm sure teachers who are firefighting, it's a lot of problem for you people. So it means that this cognitive process of attention, memory, and decision making, all these have to be taken care of, because on the screen you're showing them some presentation, then you're talking to them, then you're giving them a quiz, then you're also sending a message on WhatsApp. All these things are happening simultaneously, which the children are not used to. In fact, you yourself are not used to it. So there is a cognitive
this could become a digital clutter.
So
too many parameters grabbing the attention, seeking the attention of the student and the teacher, and that could become hugely stressful.
And then even for the teacher, there could be a lot of cognitive load. How do I manage that? There is this one window, I'm trying to teach through the mobile, and on there are so many funny videos that are coming, that how teachers are teaching by cooking, or managing their young children at home. All these complex things happen, and then it's definitely not like a live classroom, right? There is a formal engagement there, but here we have all broken all formality. It's all online. So cognition, this attention, memory, and decision making could be a problem.
And decision making in terms of there would be multitasking in the environment. For example, teachers would need to multitask because they are in their homes.
Yes.
So they would need to cook, take care of children, take care of old people, take care of multiple other things, and also take care of teaching, the teaching learning process. So otherwise they would be removed from their home environment, and so that's a formalized environment. But being at home and being available online, it's a non-formal environment which can cause a huge load on the teacher. Similarly, for students, it could happen because let's say there are parents who don't understand the system. They need not provide a safe space or a private space, a suitable space for the student to engage in online classroom. So in going to the school, one is saved of all these complex cognitive parameters, complex competing parameters by just going to the school. But in an online setting, that's not happening. So that could be happening in a home or in a friend's place, or so many such distractive parameters are there, and also parameters that where other people don't understand what is happening, and hence do not help the students in the process of online learning, teaching learning process.
And then very practical things could happen. The mobile phone could just conk off, or there could be only one place in the house where you get signal, and then you roam around finding that signal, and then it's already like 40 minutes over. The students are hearing only bits and pieces of what you spoke about, but then there is also a pressure to have a quiz based on what you taught. Then you end up scanning your notes, sending it on WhatsApp, and then there's already too much information around. These are like very practical things that happen.
So easily information overload is very, very easy in the online system, online process. Let's say without analyzing appropriately, if too much content, too many links, web links, and so on is given, it would be a huge load for the students. It would also be a huge load for the teachers. It would just be open-ended. That's where curated content becomes very, very useful.
And then we also get over enthusiastic that we are now able to share our screen, share our video, have a chat, and all that. So we try to put in as much information into the online learning space as possible. This really causes a lot of clutter. So this has nothing to do with yoga, at least when you look at it.
Yeah.
But what happens is, how do we handle this, right? How do we handle our body during online sessions? How do we handle our emotions? How do we handle the cognitive load that is being created? So you have this cognition that is happening where through the senses you receive information. And people have spoken about dual channel theory, especially in multimedia learning, where eyes are looking at something and the ears are also paying attention. So it means dual channels. Students learn through videos as well as through the audio that is coming to it, or the pictures and the audio. So what happens is, through the senses we grasp information, and then we store it in our short term memory, or something happens in the working memory as well. So for example, I tell the students, like, I'm talking very fast here. The teachers talk very fast, so they'll just give a lot of information. History teacher, 1982, 1947, 1957, 1857, so many dates they give. And then what happens is, beyond 7 or 8 dates, the children are actually not able to remember. So without that repetitive process, actually the information does not go into the long term memory. So this creates some confusion in the mind of the teacher, the student, and they're not able to pay attention and also learn effectively. So it means that there is a constant cognitive load that is created in the minds of the students through this process of information overload. We are bombarding them with a lot of information. And as he's told that stress definitely plays important. And also you'll have to look at these students in terms of how much attention they are paying. Are they having any problems at home which is preventing them from learning? All this is possible because you won't be able to observe that the children are dull and lethargic because you're teaching online. In a classroom you can immediately see because you're not responding, but I'm sure some teachers are already somehow figuring it out. But then there should be a process of knowing whether the child is dull today, is not feeling well, or is not emotionally happy today. There should be some mechanism for that. So these become important considerations especially when we are teaching online.
Yeah, that's where the larger definition of yoga, when we say yoga, it is generally understood as standing upside down or some complicated asana. That's not what yoga means. Yoga is classically defined in Yoga Sutra as Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So Chitta Vritti Nirodha means there are so many waves in the mind. Those, in Tamil we say nirthardu. Nirthardu means stopping, or
cessation
of those mental waves is Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So that seems very different because constantly thought waves are going on. Similarly, another definition that we find in Bhagavad Gita is Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. That is, balance of mind is yoga. And another definition we find is Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Karmasu Kaushalam means effectiveness and efficiency, or excellence in action is yoga. So these definitions help. Asana, pranayama are assistive parameters to help achieve balance of mind, to help achieve effectiveness and excellence in action, and to be able to, do nirodhana of thought waves or mental waves. So these are generic definitions, but now what would help specifically in these circumstances in a very practical manner? Let's consider that. So that's where, as we looked at the physical aspect, when there is physical stress, for example, eye stress, eyes become very stressed out. So there is this computer eye syndrome that children can get very early on, where eyes run dry. So that's where some eye exercises become very useful. For example, the eye muscles constantly retune or reorient the pupil iris to be able to adjust the focal length. So generally, when we look at natural environment, we are looking at moving frames, but moving at various distances. But when we are looking at online frames, the eyes get very, very dry and very, very stuck. So the focal length does not get readjusted. So to be able to do that is very important periodically. So that's where certain simple practices where you keep a stretched out arm and look at the thumb in a gentle way, not peering into it, but relaxed manner, and move it sideways, but without moving your head. You just move the eyeballs. This helps reorient and refocus the eyes. Then up and down, five times, and this helps in reorientation. Then you rotate clockwise and anti-clockwise without your head moving, just the eyeballs moving. And immediately you will see some benefit. And then readjusting the focal length by moving the thumb closer to the eyeballs and moving it away. Finally, cupping, warming the palms up and cupping the eyes and gently massaging them. If you find the eyes becoming too strained or dry, it's useful to cup your palms, take some water, and gently, not throwing it in, but gently washing the eyes. So these might sound almost simplistic, but we have seen through experience that it really benefits a lot of people, because this could be a major cause for irritation and a loss of attention, where the eyes get super strained. Because in natural circumstances, your eye focal length is constantly getting readjusted. But in online circumstances, your eyes get stuck. And for children to realize it, it's very difficult. That's where the teachers, realizing this, periodically, let's say, beginning of class and end of class, they try this, the students would immensely get benefited. Because students always look up to teachers. Whatever the teacher says is like Veda Vakya, for the students. So it's very useful to keep the eyes in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is the postural deficit that is created by online learning. So that can be taken care of, one, by stretching. So one stretches. So it is like, what we in Tamil say, sombal murikkaradu. When we wake up in the morning, we stretch. So I have my legs stretched out in front and arms stretched and the neck completely bent. And I'm also compressing my face and breathing in deeply. Doing this thrice helps in blood flow throughout the body, because otherwise blood flow gets restricted in certain postures, and that leads to other kinds of issues. For example, cervical spondylitis, lower back pain, pain in the lower extremities. So these are common phenomena which can be taken care of by helping the blood circulation, blood recirculation through such stretches. The third aspect is to become aware of any pain. One does a practice called rotation of awareness. So one takes the awareness from the feet, becoming aware of the feet, and seeing if there is any pain in that region. Then becoming aware of the knees and seeing if there is any pain in that region. Becoming aware of the thighs and seeing if there is any pain in that region. Becoming aware of the lower part of the body, and then becoming aware of the lower back and seeing if there is any pain there. Becoming aware of the upper back and chest, shoulders, and arms and neck. Generally, the shoulders and neck carry a lot of strain. So becoming aware of them helps in locating the pain. Once it's located, then simple Pavana Muktasana practices, where, for example, let's say there's pain that some student finds. Teachers can easily give this instruction and students can follow it and locate, okay, here I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. If someone says, then a simple movement of that region, readjusting the posture, or just standing up and then sitting down a few times. That itself might make a big difference in the students' overall, comfort, postural comfort. So these seem very simple, but these are very effective and time-tested mechanisms.
And if you find that the students are feeling drowsy, which many times they might, so you can assume that many students might find it drowsy, and then maybe you can give them some energizing practices in between the sessions. So one thing is this wiggling the fingers,
Yeah.
Like this. So this quickly wakes them up. Even if you try it now, you will actually feel very refreshed.
Yeah, very refreshed.
Yeah. And then students, because they use the mouse and keyboard often, so this is one practice that they can look at. And even if you are using the mouse or holding the mobile phone for a long time, these places start to ache. So you can do rotation and then this one, and then folding of the arms. So these are some practices that you can introduce to the children. So what you can do is you can set aside the first 5 minutes to any of these practices, either stretching, eye practices, or first 5 minutes for the stretching, last 5 minutes for the eye practices. So that is something that you can do. Second thing is we were talking about emotions and attention. So what happens is when we are paying attention so much to something, we often forget to breathe. So something that you can teach students is deep breathing. So one way to engage them in an interesting manner is to have a count of the breaths. For example, you can tell them that you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that, right? And in a step, they actually inhale like this.
Yeah, in 3 steps.
In 3 steps, they inhale. Like,
and then in 3 steps, they exhale.
Or they just exhale forcefully, whichever way, whatever is interesting to them. You can try it out and then maybe experiment with it.
Yes.
So like 1, 2, 3, exhale. 1, 2, 3, exhale. So these are practices, if you do just 5 times, you can actually see that their engagement and involvement with the class will be much better.
Much better.
Because suddenly they feel woken up and then they suddenly feel something fun and exciting is going on. And then also this deep breathing automatically rejuvenates their attention process. That way also they feel emotionally connected to what you're saying and cognitively connected to what you're saying.
Yes.
So these, don't give them too many breaks in between, but if you're having a 40 minutes 45 minutes class, something in the beginning, something at the end, and something in the middle, like a quick energizing practices with deep breathing. Or you can ask them to do abdominal breathing, like for example he will show you
where you breathe out and you push the stomach in, and then breathe in deeply. Breathe out, push the stomach in, and then breathing deeply. So this, what it does is, it pushes the air out of the lungs. When the air is pushed out of the lungs, then the children would be forced to take in a breath. Because generally, children might engage in very shallow breathing and arrhythmic breathing because of online engagement. Because they are so focused on online classes that they might forget to blink. Like that, they might forget to breathe. And these, over a period of time, lead to a lot of problems, lot of complications. And too many complicated solutions need to be applied. Instead, as teachers have been traditionally doing in the physical classroom space, similarly, teachers have a very important role in the online classroom space, because they can direct these minor processes, but very important processes. Simple processes like blinking their eyes periodically, like that, breathing periodically. And to enable breathing, they push out they empty their lungs. It could even be done like,
yes,
it's like blowing a candle. Doing 3 times would enable them to become completely fresh and break the monotony. So that will bring in a new enthusiasm, right? Enthusiasm also has a physical component, an energetic component. So that way they would be able to clear themselves off and then refocus.
And what you can do is maybe once in a week or so, you can encourage a bunch of students, 4 or 5 students, to practice some difficult asana and ask them to demonstrate it in the class.
Yeah.
So they will actually look forward to the class to demonstrate it to other students, as well as students will get motivated to keep on trying. For example, our son, he was not able to do the Shirsasana or and handstand posture when the lockdown started, but every day he would keep playing with it, and at the end of 20 or 25 days he was just able to do it.
Yeah.
I'm sure children can pick it up really fast,
Really fast.
but that really motivates them to, that brings in a growth mindset. See, we adults, what we feel, no, I won't be able to do, it's very difficult for me, but children always have this growth mindset. This is nothing, I can even try this.
Yeah.
This is not a big deal. We have to bring in that growth mindset in the children so that they feel happy and that they're actually growing, learning new things in the process.
And when they are encouraged to demonstrate in front of the class in the online session, that is a huge motivator. No.
So we've looked at, just to wrap it up, we have looked at 3 dimensions: the physical body, the emotions, and the cognition. And we've looked at practices, especially eye exercises. You can replay this video once it's available on YouTube, or we will email a set of practices that you can begin the class with. And also some stretches we have looked at for the neck, and then stretching it in front of the body.
And rotation of
And
awareness.
rotation of awareness throughout the body. And wherever there is pain, you're stretching it a little bit or relaxing it a little bit. And we have also looked at how breathing helps, right? Some kind of a step breathing. You count 3 and then they exhale, and also do abdominal breathing to empty their lungs completely of the air that is stuck there. That also helps. And
one of the most critical parameters to address when we look at cognitive aspect, attention, memory, or even decision making and so on, even stress, one of the critical parameters is, in the online space, we are bombarded with a lot of information very quickly, like too much of what is called reactive stress. So you need to react or respond to so many information or information modules or input coming in, where the reaction time has to be very short. That causes stress. So that's called reactive stress. To be able to take care of it, one very simple, very important practice is closing the eyes and imagining cloud or ocean,
vast
spaces. And that helps declutter the mental space and brings down the reactive stress in the cognitive space because of overload of content and information and response. So imagining a vast blue sky, if they are instructed to do that, even for a couple of minutes, that would be a major, helpful factor in preventing attention-related problems and also stress-related problems. So I think with this, we wish all the teachers.
Hope this was useful. Yeah. Do practice some of these and do offer this to your children, students as well. If you have any questions, you can post it in the chat box. So this was really a rapid fire session.
Yeah. But you could also email us at any time. So thank you all for the opportunity. It's been wonderful meeting you all. Yes. Namaste. Namaste.
Thank you, Malati ma'am. Happy that it was clear.
And even if the video or the technology gets stuck too often and it's not coherent, it is okay. Certain times you don't need to take responsibility for everything. Even that mindset is very helpful because there is a learning curve. You allow yourselves to learn.
And then there is also a certain acceptance. Now that we are in this situation, lockdown in our homes, and somehow we need to engage our children because they will otherwise miss the learning content.
Yeah.
So with that understanding, if we offer, I think these glitches should definitely be okay.
Yeah, initially when we start out with something new, it's very useful to have a mindset which is like best effort delivery. So there are 2 types of deliveries: best effort delivery and perfect delivery. Or So It need not be perfect delivery, but best effort delivery over a period of time, it tends towards perfection. As we repeatedly do it and engage with the online platform, we really become good at it.
And we as teachers, when we experiment in this space, actually, so many teachers coming down the lane actually get benefited
Actually get
because we have cracked it for them.
Yeah.
So that way, our responsibility in this situation becomes multi-fold.
Yeah. That's where a positive attitude definitely helps.
Yes. So thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Namaste and
Namaste.
happy Yoga Day to all of you.
Yes.
Hope this inspires you to take up yoga asanas and pranayama and the yogic
Yeah.
path in some way.
Yeah. Let us end with a prayer.
Om.
Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.